being a consultant, I'm pretty used to working just about anywhere, client side, an airplane, as long as it has Wi-Fi, and just about anywhere where the shelf-powered internet connection, I can usually work. Although I do have to say, working from home has been interesting in the sense that it's not just you at home anymore. Now you have your family and your kids around, and it's a lot different than it normally is, because normally we work from home on Fridays anyways, but I'm home alone and it's really quiet. But it's not quiet anymore. And I've picked up a couple of new roles in the house. I'm the family tech support as well as the math and science teacher, or at least tutor in that sense. So it's been a very kind of interesting kind of moving into this, what we call new normal. And I think that term's been thrown out there quite a bit lately. So, having said that, we invited GitLab to come talk to us about how they do it. I think it's, 2012, you've been a fully remote company, 100%. And I think I saw on one of those decks that you're the largest all remote companies in the world. So it's just kind of really exciting to have you come talk to us. And I'm going to turn it over to Brandon Jung, who is the VP of Alliances, to kind of kick us off and give us kind of the inside scoop on how GitLab does this.
Thank you. So much appreciated. I'm going to make it real interactive, and James, thank you. Most of this, just to be crystal clear, we had no idea was going to land where we are today as a globe, right? In terms of what we're all handling. And so one of the things that we wanted to give some context is what and how do you move to remote? And so as James had said, GitLab is now 1,300 people. We're the world's largest all remote company. There's companies like IBM that I used to work at that has a larger number of remote employees. But we think there's a difference perhaps between I can work remote, between that and what does it look like for all remote. And a large number of us went from, as James had said, working as a consultant, we work remotely, but now we all work remotely. And so what are the implications there? And so a couple of things about GitLab. We'll spend a little bit of time here later around what GitLab is and what we do as a product, but I wanted to spend a little bit of time and start with some best practices we found on being 100% remote. And in true GitLab fashion, everything we do is documented and every answer is a link. So to get us started, a couple fun practices that we're going to all practice together. If you haven't, I'm going to repost it for everyone. There is a link in the Zoom chat that you should all see to a Google Doc. And so the process here, I'm actually going to take you through a process that is really helpful for us, and then I'm going to give you some tools you can do a whole bunch of fun stuff with. The doc you're in, as James had said, we're actually not a huge group here, so we could easily do verbal, but as we find more and more groups doing larger get-togethers, once you cross about 25, which I think we're about to cross, it becomes really difficult to handle questions and to get feedback. So what we're going to do today, this is our conversation. What you're going to see under there is the slides. If you're in there, it looks like everyone's pretty much jumped in there. You're going to see highlighted, because the nice part is you can see everything. Those are the slides, and I'm going to take you through some slides. I will actually broadcast them, but what's more important is here's some links for exactly how you get it done. And most importantly, on the bottom, you've got questions. So we're going to do this old style, which means you can write your questions down below. Nice part about doing this way, which might not be perfectly intuitive, is if we're writing our questions down here, everyone for the Tampa Bay DevOps that wasn't able to attend can now get a single link to this Google Doc, and everything that was asked, the questions that got answered, are all there. And so now we're moving from meetings that have traditionally been required you attend to asynchronous. And as James had highlighted, I have 3 little kids. Being able to attend meetings in our current world may become more difficult. And so the ability to run asynchronously, meaning being able to operate where 2 people are on a different time zone, or take care of an ailing parent, or you're the math teacher or the English teacher, is going to become more and more important. So I'm going to actually practice what we preach, and you're going to go through here add your questions as you go. You can cheat too. The other thing is we're all big about sharing everything. So GitLab, we're 100% transparent, which means we liberally share everything, which means you see the doc and the slides up above, go forth and use them. You will actually be able to get ahead of me if you want, which means you can go ask questions all you want. So to that end, I'm gonna spend a little bit of time and I'm gonna do a quick share my desktop. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Context-wise, from where I came from, I lead up alliances. What does that mean? That means pretty much everything external for GitLab that's not sales or marketing. So I'll work with anyone from, an Accenture to Amazon or Google or VMware. I also sit on the board of the Linux Foundation, so work a whole lot with open source companies, open source organizations. Before I came to GitLab, was at Google, helped found the Kubernetes project, as well as getting all the partners on board to it. So that's a little background, but what I want to do here in this deck, you can take, use, copy, whatever you would like. We talked a little bit, GitLab's about 1,200 people. We've had to operate from day one quite differently because as an open source company, everything is transparent on what we ship and what we do. And so in addition to the 1,200 GitLabbers we have in 65 countries, we also have 2,200 code contributors, another 10,000 other contributors. And so we have been wrestling through what it looks like in fully remote at scale for quite some time. And we've learned some things that worked well, a lot that didn't work well. So we're just gonna share the stuff that works well. That said, if you have ideas, we're always changing, we're already iterating. There may be some great stuff you found, so please let us know. So we think all remote is the future. It's happened a little faster than we would have in a way we didn't want it to. So clearly all of COVID was not ideal. And a large number of teams have had to go rapidly from in person to fully remote. And a lot of questions come up with how you do that. Just about every company's hit that, including a bunch of companies that have all the tools in place, but it's a bit of adjustment, companies like Google and Microsoft. Couple things, we see them as a lot of upsides for companies. I think these have been known for a while. This isn't new. Fully remote gives you access to operational discipline, efficiency because of the locations that you can reach people, and opportunity to reach great people anywhere around the world. The efficiency is also pretty simple. We have capital structure for GitLab is relatively simple. It's your MacBook. That's our capital structure. That's helpful. That obviously makes us more nimble and useful in this time, but that's not at all what we really want to get at. What we want to get at is how do we deal with these challenges? Challenges are now your workspace has changed. If it was in an office, it's now at home. If it was at home, it now has a whole bunch of other munchkins in it. I have a 7, 5, and 3-year-old. They're awesome, but this printer right next to me, I'm buying a lot more ink for it. So pieces we need there, comms. We're finding a lot of this is a pretty urgent communications around COVID and everything else. How do we do the comms? And then most importantly, how do we handle the mindset? Because it's a different mindset when you're operating 100% remote. So how do we do some trials? A couple things, let me start a couple things. First off, we gotta break some old habits. These are a little bit tough, these are a lot more difficult than one might expect. The first thing is every answer should be a link. You can click on that link. That link, to be crystal clear, goes to something called our handbook, which means everything is written down. And that means, look, hey, answer with the link. Why do you answer with the link? And the context as to why that matters and how it can help. It's for people to search for their own answers. That matters a heck of a lot when people are asynchronous and you have a lot of change. So that's why you view it. A link and all this goes back to our handbook. The handbook that I just linked out to is called the GitLab Handbook, 5,000 pages. Anyone in the world can use it. Please feel free to copy it. The only thing we ask is if you find something better and a better way of doing it, that you contribute it back. Because we believe everyone can contribute, and especially here. There's some other habits that were useful to break. I'd be curious, I'd take a poll, so you feel free to answer or write this down is, hey, how many people at expiration in your Slack, Teams, or chat? A lot of them, everyone fights this. Oh no, we want it as long as possible. The problem is that those are not accessible. So it should only be for short-term communication. And by forcing it to expire in 90 days, everything goes back to a single source of truth. In this case, it is for us a handbook. So we treat the tool for what it's good for. Slack and Teams are great. We use Slack, love it. Trying to optimize getting people into the same Slack channel, a bunch of stuff's good there, but that's not where the source of truth should be. Focus on meeting organizers. You need to organize your meetings. This goes without saying. I'm just trying to give you some tools here on how we do it. Every single meeting at GitLab has an invite and it has a Google Doc link in it. And the Google Doc link is the same link that you had, because guess what? Every time you start with a new one, you can walk right in and you'll know exactly what to expect. You'll know where to get your questions, and you're going to know things like, oh, here's the slide deck. That's all the data that you need to know when you come to the table. That process of having consistent, the same thing every time, means that you don't end up in the question that everyone does in a meeting that starts with the first 5 minutes of, oh, where's the deck? Hey, is the right version of the deck? Side note, please use something like a Google Doc or anything in the Google Suite. Microsoft you can do this too. That doesn't have versioning. Like, versioning is the death knell to collaboration. So we'd encourage you to use those tools, be them from Google or Microsoft. Tend to have two good ones. Again, both work. We're demonstrating stuff that we use, which is really on the Google side. Focus on inclusivity, but I'm going to move a little bit quickly to hit a couple other parts. Next one, we make remote work because we focus on a single source of truth. Try to optimize that across everyone. That means when a new person joins, they can follow the process. They know how to get up to speed, and the answer is in a place that they can share. You can share it with them, but give them the link so that they understand the why behind it. Our single source of truth is our handbook, which you would see. Embrace asynchronous. We're going to get in a bit detail of what we mean by asynchronous workflow. And you got to trust, and that's kind of a given. That's a process. We do handbook first. Our handbook is a completely public open source tool. It leverages GitLab, not surprisingly, for versioning so that anyone can contribute. At the bottom of every single page in the handbook has a here, contribute. You can up it, merge it, works great, and real editable for anyone in the world. Single source of truth, and makes it easy for people to know. We embrace workflows, so please, we strongly suggest not using workflows that are called email or a spreadsheet. Use an issue tracker. There's a reason for it. We all know why we have it in the DevOps space. I'm sure you all do. We actually, though, use it all the way up to our marketing team. So our marketing teams, our sales teams use this to understand who's working on X, when they're delivering it, and all the other parts. The hard transition to remote, and this is going to be your leader. If your leaders sit in an office, this is going to be very hard to do because every decision will be standardized into wherever that office is, and the decisions will never get outside of that office. That's just sort of the way it works. So get the executives out of the office. If that mattered, I think we're all actually now forced to do this. So that works pretty well. Build a consistent tool stack, which I'll hit on, and then act everyone remote and assume meetings aren't required. So document, and where you set a meeting, if it's a meeting with a large number of people, some people are going to be missing it. Make that meeting by using docs and these tools such that when you leave, anyone that missed the meeting can come back and see it. Anything I'm telling right now that we had in this meeting, anyone can go back and understand without watching a single video. You could record the video, but they only have to see the deck and the questions we ask. Couple things on our utility belt, because you got to have a utility belt. We use Zoom, Slack, GitLab, and G Suite. That's it. We're very standardized, very consistent process. Yours may be different, but I would try and choose a process and try and keep it consistent. This has been, again, used in many places. In the DevOps culture, this is pretty consistent, unless, of course, you get to choose your own tools, and then you know what happens when you choose, everyone gets to choose their own tools, everyone has an opinion. That case, no different here when running a fully remote. It's an important piece to cover is choose it, stick to it, run a consistent tool set for it. And that's ours. But you can substitute other pieces in here. Zoom could be Hangouts, Zoom could be Teams, Slack could also be Teams, I suppose, if you wanted. I think there's a couple other options besides Slack. GitLab could be a whole bunch of different tool sets around issue tracking and management if you wanted. And G Suite, of course, is Office 365 might be another option. Couple pieces here that we'll share with you, and you can use it. We've got a report on where remote work is. Honestly, this is just a sexy way of presenting what is the handbook that I'd linked to before, and every link in here goes to. So a practitioner, this is nice for data. This is to encourage someone if you think they need any more encouragement than we currently do to go remote. Here's a place to do it and context for it. But the actual how you do it, we see sitting inside of that handbook. So that said, that is most of it. And I wanted to make the most important part about fully remote and the process we use is you have the data. You can read it anytime you want. We try and publish it as early as possible. And when you have questions, we want to spend the majority of time digging into questions. So with that said, I'm going to shift back over in here, and I'll check Zoom if anyone had Zoom questions. But I think we are good. So I'm going to start with Cardenas. Would you mind, you're welcome if you could verbalize, it'd be awesome. If you have more questions, and then we'll go ahead and answer them right in here. But you want to go ahead and add the context as to your question and go ahead and verbalize it. Robert, you want to jump in? I think, I think.
He may be on mute.
He is on mute.
Okay.
I was mute, sorry.
No, not at all. It's good.
I was talking, and there was mute. Yeah, one of the main concerns is from my side is sometimes you are, like Jim says in the beginning, we are not alone anymore at home.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone was working at home, but you were alone. So you don't have noise in the background. There are no people also doing their stuff because we have kids at school. They have to attend other meetings at the same times. Wife that day, everyone is at home now, and sometimes you have meeting at the same times.
Yep.
So my concern is how do you handle that? How GitLab coordinate that with your people? I can attend the meeting, but sometimes I have to keep mute, and then I have to go, like you said, to the document, and then put my questions there. So you have to do it. But that's my idea. But I don't know how to handle it in real life when you have the whole week meetings at the same time. So that's the question. How do you handle the conflict, the overlapping meetings? Maybe when you see with people in your team, it's not a big deal because people know that you have maybe in a situation. But when you are with a client, you want to go, pretty quiet, silently, because you are presenting or you are setting a product, that kind of things.
Sure. So, Robert, I don't know what company you're with and stuff. I would say, so the first one is set the expectations inside a company. So I'll deal with this maybe as, I think there's two questions here. First, at GitLab, there's a couple things. Is one, for my team, for myself, I always invite, like if my kids come in here, I'm going to have them literally just walk over and they'll say hi. What does it do? Hey, we're all in a world that we're all now connected. We're all at home. We're all in the same boat. So we're the best thing is to acknowledge it and be aware, like, hey, we're all going through this. By the way, the emotional piece that we're all dealing with older parents or sick relatives, like there's a lot emotionally that we're dealing with here. So the first one is like, we really encourage, hey, keep camera on, bring other people in that are around. Like if there's noise and there's stuff, like it's expected. I mean, have a good mute button. See, I did that. There's a hot button for everything. Make sure you have a hot button. You can mute. Spend a little bit on making a setup that works, and some of that's going to take a little bit of time now. And then most of all, it's going to come down to this. Leaders need to be clear and comfortable with the fact that we are now operating and living and working from home. And that means, yes, there's going to be some noise at times. So, get a good mic. On the flip side, that's kind of the world we're going to be moving into. And the sooner that particularly leaders acknowledge that's the world we exist in and are comfortable with it, it does two things. One, it invites everyone else to engage, right? So cameras on mean you know where I'm going. If I eat lunch, I'm gonna eat lunch, because if I'm in a meeting, if I were in a conference room with you over lunch, you'd watch me eat lunch, right? Like it's no different. So keeping the camera on is really helpful. It helps people engage and understand where people are. So like obviously if someone walks in and the camera's off, you get noise, you're like, oh, mute it. But if you walk in and my cute little 3-year-old comes coming over, you know where it's coming from. Even if I'm on mute or I'm around, you understand the context. So be comfortable with it. that's also awesome for culture. So I think everyone, and this is a unique spot, we're going to go people are going all remote, and I'll be honest, I don't think a lot are coming back. And so everyone's going to get really familiar with what Robert's doing, which is taking us to a new spot and showing us the most adorable little baby, okay? Everyone on the call right now is like, baby, that is beautiful. And we're all connected, and we need that.
That's why I can talk right now.
Right. So this is a piece that allows us to connect with each other. And I think this is an opportunity for us. Ironically, everyone thought all remote was going to disconnect us as people. Here's the thing. Guess what, Robert? I'm way more connected because I saw your, it's going to be bad, daughter, son, wasn't quick enough to catch.
It's Lucas.
Lucas. So I've now seen Lucas. If I was working with you and your coworkers have probably never seen Lucas until now. Now they are he's a part of their life. You get to interact that way. And I think that brings an opportunity for us to interact with humans way better than we ever have before. So I actually think this is exciting. Now, with clients, I think it's the other thing, we invite them into that. So do what we're doing here. I will start from day one, here's how we operate, and two, we're gonna be, I'm gonna be very professional, but it's gonna be less professional than the world was before. And that's just the way things have become, and there's no way we can solve it. And in some ways, that's the gift of COVID is we're all gonna deal with this together. So that's a long-winded answer, but yeah, have a mute button, but also just acknowledge that's life, and I think it's cool. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
Of course. I know we're kind of at time, but if there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. I will actually stay in this doc for the rest of it, and if there's questions people come up, I put a bunch of links kind of up above that answer where we were coming from. But I'll pause if that's not there. I think hand it over to David and Jim. But any last questions from anyone they want to ask?
And you said you would shoot out the deck, right?
The deck's attached in that doc. So if you look at the doc, there's slides. It says slides. It's called Tampa DevOps April Thriving Remote Team. Right there.
And the doc is where again? I joined like a few minutes late, sorry.
Oh, so I'll add it right in. Sorry, let me put in the Zoom. This is also, generally, I would suggest always have that link in an invite, but I'll add it in the Zoom chat.
Cool.
Stop sharing. And that is in. And then all the data is there for you. And obviously,
so
don't think this goes with saying, James, post this anywhere you want. This data is all stuff anyone can use. Go forth, share with anyone.
Great. And then we did put in the link, the raffle information. So I put it in the chat window as well as that document, so you can grab it in either location. But trying to keep to the same fashion, we're just making sure that the document that we use for our meeting had all the relevant information that was in there.
I think this is Dave Wells. I think Brandon made a key point I don't want it to be missed. Is we have a meeting. We always put that link in the invite. That way everybody has access to it right away. Everybody can async on it. I work for GitLab. Several of you know that. And so I don't want to give a plug for another company, but there is an app out there called Crisp. And what it does, it blocks out some background noise. So try that one out. They've got a free version and see what you get. I'm with Brandon. We were laughing earlier. I've got two stinky teenagers. I don't have cute little kids anymore. But I saw Brandon's kids walking in and use the printer, and about the same time, I had two kids lined up in my office here to use the printer. So it's so culturally normal now to see other people's kids, like you said. I love it. And I think years ago, people would have felt that's unprofessional. Like, oh my gosh, you've got people in the room. I don't think anybody cares anymore because I think people are so accustomed to it. Thanks for letting me share that. And I'm actually going to turn it over to Miss Karen here, who's got a presentation to give for us today. So I'm going to pass the baton to Karen.
All right. Hello, everybody. Are we seeing the slides?
Yes, I can see the slide.
Okay. So good afternoon, I'm Karen. I'm a solution architect here at GitLab. I've actually been working from home for 10 years. So in pre-sales, working from home has been pretty normal. I used to work for IBM, that stood for I'm by myself. So my day to day from a work perspective hasn't changed that much. I'm very lucky from that. I'm also a bit of a hermit, so it turns out I was home a lot anyway. But with everything going on, I really thought, why is GitLab still valuable? I mean, really, from a truly selfish perspective, is everything from GitLab just going to go on people's frozen pile? I really thought about that. And I think, for you guys, you're probably considering a lot of different projects. Things are getting tossed around, priorities. And, why does it matter? And that's what I'm going to talk about, my opinion of why it matters. It's my opinion because you're stuck listening to me. So congratulations. Also, feel free to interject, interrupt, whatever, whenever you want. But yeah, so I was really thinking about this last week. I've been playing Animal Crossing. It's kind of boring, but hey, locked in the house. And watching Better Call Saul. So starting that, it's pretty good. It's way slower than Breaking Bad. So I think it's kind of good for doing multiple things. You're not constantly rewinding. So go pick up your weeds in Animal Crossing. So yeah, so I was really thinking about why GitLab is relevant and sort of worrying, right? I think we all have concerns about what we're doing. Is it still relevant? And I came to the conclusion that I think it is. And I think it's because for most of our customers, in app dev, the DevOps process, the responsibilities are still the same. So there might be tweaks, but generally we need to plan, we need to code, we need to test, we need to deliver. And it's probably likely, that somewhere in your plan, there has been change, plans in the future. So we talk to customers all the time who are moving their production deployments to go to Kubernetes. How can we support that? Integrating tighter security into your app dev's lifecycle. How can you be more efficient with your tool chain? Getting rid of plugins. We all know what that means. In one way or another, we all had change that was sort of planned, and now there's change that's unplanned. But at the end of the day, a lot of this is still the same for what we need to do, and we just need to be more efficient. And maybe for some of us, there's a lot more pressure to be efficient. It's terrible to make blanket statements. So I think for some people, there is a lot more pressure to deliver now. So, thinking about where we are, future world, whether we're back in the office or some sort of hybrid, whatever that is, we'll just call it future world. I don't know when it is. I'm not going to try to label it. But, if you wanted to see, there's actually a documentary with Peter Fonda and Blythe Danner of what our lives will look like. It was on Amazon Prime streaming, and now it's not. But if you see it, it's really worthwhile. It's always a good time to see the future world of Battlestar Galactica. So good. Of course, is it really the future at all? Mm-hmm. And if you need a good podcast, Mission to Zix. So it's sort of like the Orville of podcasts. You kind of see where the theme of what I like is. But these are the things that are on my mind as I think about GitLab as well. So the future world where all these fabulous things are going on, why do they matter? Why should you care about GitLab, or not even GitLab, care about DevOps, care about any of these, trying to digital transformation, trying to consolidate and be faster? Who cares? We're all stuck at home, right? And at the end of the day, the company still cares, so we care. And there's a bunch of reasons why customers come to GitLab. And I think earlier in the year, now, and in future world, it's sort of the same. So we talk about tool chain complexity. You have all these tools everywhere. Managing them is horrible. If you don't think managing them is horrible, it might be because the person who is managing them is doing magic that you don't even realize. And of course, most of us know that at this point, probably on this call. But tool chains, terrible, but we need them. Again, trying to get security integrated into development. So that's a big deal. We have security tools, but they're run at the end. How are you going to slam that into the release? Getting it so that the developer is actively seeing security. That's a thing. Getting your entire team across all of your disciplines in one place and in one set of data. So this has actually been the dream that I have probably been selling the entire time since I've been home. One set of data, one set of tools across your application lifecycle. And when I was looking at GitLab, I kind of had to chuckle in my head because I'm like, nothing's changed. But actually what had changed is GitLab had actually done it. Everything else I used to, kind of position in the same way. It was just, taped together, maybe sort of like your tool chain is today. versus GitLab that, turned out to actually be one app and really drove my interest to come here. And of course, that good old, process of migrating to cloud, don't want vendor lock-in, don't want feature lock-in, trying to figure out a way that, you can be as agnostic as possible. For really new companies, maybe all they have are mobile apps, but surely for older companies that are maybe older than 5 years, there's many types of apps and many types of technology and languages that you need to support. And you can't have something that's just specific, will only work for one type of app or is only going to work for one cloud provider. You need something that's flexible. So these are why people, when we're talking to people, why they need GitLab. And so when I was thinking about it specifically, tool chain. So tool chains are awful. Tool chains are awful. Tool chains are awful. You are now at home, but they're still awful. Maybe the person managing the tool chain is a little happier. Maybe not. Depends on the personality. I forget that people don't like being at home. And then, the future of what you want. So again, wherever you are, how are you going to make that tool chain better? How are you going to make it so it's more automated, so you're not bouncing servers, so you're not having to, sync plugins, worry about things that are compatible. No matter where you are, no matter when we are, tool chain complexity is probably the first thing people come to GitLab for. Then we get into compliance and security. So for all of the DevOps movements, and a lot of our customers are already, embraced it somewhat or mostly, boy, security is always over there. They are never invited to the birthday party. Emails, just like Brendan was saying, boy, so many emails. That's just how they're communicating. Maybe other people are on Slack, but for some reason, security and emails. We were just talking to a customer last week who, kind of joked about it. They're not happy about it. It's just, the way life is, the way the process is. Want to change that. Nothing's going to change. Wherever you are, you can still send emails to security. It did occur to me that maybe for some of you, it's actually easier to find people on Zoom. I find it's actually easier to keep in touch with, friends. So hey, maybe it's somewhat better at home. Maybe you learned something, and maybe you will continue to use Zoom to talk to people. But just seeing your face is not digital transformation. So how are you going to actually get compliance and security a part of your process, a part of that pipeline? Get feedback when it is actively running, when the branch is still open, pre-merge, pre-code review. That piece of code is yours to fix. And maybe some developers are like, I don't want to fix it, but that's the best place for you to fix your application, is when you are making that change. So how do you do that? That's the future world you want to be in. One place, one data, different teams. So you might have, something in a planning tool and something in a CI/CD tool and something in an app tool. Maybe you have integrated, dashboarding and something like Splunk or Datadog, but there is a lot of bouncing around and people having a different set of data and a different point of view based upon, the tool that they live in, and maybe also not having up-to-date data, depending on how the integrations work. Again, that tool chain. So it's still the same situation. Your life just might be, more restricted by Wi-Fi. And again, nothing is going to change. Going back to the office doesn't change the fact that you are going to be so much more efficient. The collaboration really does matter. At GitLab, we actually use GitLab, which to me was strange because in my brain, I was like, it's a development tool. But we use it for everything. We collaborate on everything. We open issues for everything. So it's great for asynchronous work. And it's great for people that are sitting on Zoom with me. We put our ideas there, sharing it with the whole team. That to me is the true culture change that happens with GitLab, is when you start using issues and then eventually merge requests if it ends up into code. When you start using issues to really plan details, track issues, track what's going on. If you have a thought and it's something you want the team to think about, put it in an issue. Talking about it in Slack or not, or just, talking about it in Zoom isn't going to be actionable. And if you're like me, you might forget it because you get, distracted by 10 other things. For instance, I was working with a customer, our documentation was not clear. open an issue, fix that documentation, make a change for the company that is good for everybody. That's something that I can do with GitLab. And that's just because of this kind of collaborative point of view. I know that might be a big shift and a big kind of different way of working, but that's the difference that GitLab makes as far as for my day-to-day life when I'm working with issues and with everybody accessing the exact same data. And then, of course, your clouds. Everybody wants to work in the same cloud, or actually, they don't want to work in the same cloud. They want to have a multi-cloud strategy. They're going to invest in one, but they want to be able to go to the other. And that's cool. That's cool. Then, you know, reality hits. And what's going to happen at the end is, you know, after the fluctuation, you're still going to have a strategy. And you're still going to need to ensure that your tool chain and your applications are all going to work in these clouds. And if you have deployments that, you know, you don't have vendor lock-in, that you're not using something specific to only one cloud vendor, otherwise your CI/CD pipeline is not, you know, particularly reusable. So in the future world, all these things still matter. They mattered before. They maybe feel, honestly, maybe they feel like they matter less now, but generally they matter. As business people and app dev people, they matter. And, you know, this is what GitLab does. So, you know, everybody pick the logos of the tool chain that you have. Shun me if I have not put on the logos of what you prefer, but everybody's got something. I didn't really even think about DevOps being 10 stages before I got to GitLab, but then I kind of looked at this and went, yeah, it is. I mean, you just think about everything. I'm old enough to just call it software development lifecycle. Here it is. It's all here. When people typically think of GitLab, they think of SCM and they think of CI/CD, which would be the create and verify columns. And surely we're awesome at that. People love us for that. That's cool. But as a company, we have a greater vision to actually have a single app across your entire DevOps tool chain. So when you're thinking about process and you're thinking about why does DevOps matter, because you're trying to be more efficient, because you need to deliver faster, because you need to be more cloud centric, you know, TFS just shutting down, you got to get that stuff off prem, a bajillion different reasons. GitLab is actually more than SCM and CI/CD, which is great. A lot of this process is actually driven by CI/CD. What you really want is awesome automation. So you want testing that's part of your pipeline, both static and dynamic and container and whatever else you want. You want that to be part of your pipeline. You want it to happen on every commit. That's what we do at GitLab. Every time there's a commit, you have the potential to run a pipeline, get feedback, get results. The developer can act on it, AppSec can act on it, management can act on it, and by act on it, it's different things. The developer could change code, application security could say, you know, I give this a variance, it's fine. You know, management can come in and say, whoa, this is going to take a lot longer. I need to adjust the weight on this. I need to change my schedule. Everybody is seeing the same data based on that pipeline, and that's huge. And so the single app, it's driven by CI/CD, that's where we're going. The investment in security, monitoring, planning, this is where we're going. So as you learn more about GitLab and you see the features, it's actually just more than SCM. And of course, we are data center agnostic. Do not care any type of infrastructure that you have, anywhere you want to deploy it. Honestly, don't care. That's the beauty of the CI/CD pipeline. You define your standards, you define your environments, and you go. So I was actually going to put in one more recommendation slide. Everybody should listen to Stevie Wonder. So when you're listening to Stevie Wonder and you're having like hopefully a nice moment in the sun, you think about why does anything that you do still matter? It matters, well, because you have a job, and it matters because it's important and it's going to make a difference to the company. And at GitLab, that's what we think. I still think we are still relevant. So yeah, anyway. Probably no questions, but feel free to question or whatever. That's it.
There was a couple questions in the doc.
Okay, I can't see the doc right now, so if you want to verbalize it, that's fine, or whomever.
Okay, sure. How do you handle situations with different time zones and region resources? If we become remote, then we'll be able to work with anyone at any time from anywhere. What is the strategy in cases like that? This might be for Brandon. I think, Brandon, you're still on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am. So So this is, the strategy in that is the async. So to be very simple, that's the reason async matters, that you've hit on the primary reason is zones and region resources are the ones that, I think this is the part that brings it to forefront. But in reality, given that we're working from home and we all have different constraints, asynchronous is useful for everyone. It just so happens the place that you're going to have to solve it for, or most deeply, is going to be time zones and regions. And that's why the strategy is, if your meetings matter, you got to have it documented, you got to write them down so that the communication can happen, and that someone, I'll be blunt, the region that gets the hardest go of it is going to be APAC in most cases. If you want to work with people in the Asia Pacific region, the processes we kind of laid out here are extremely helpful. So I follow the async to a T is going to make that working with different time zones massively better for everyone.
I'd also say that one thing I've noticed that people at GitLab make a lot of effort to do is, especially for company-wide meetings, they're scheduled twice a day. So really, really early, really, really late. And then like for internally for the solution architects, sometimes our monthly like worldwide call, it'll be, you know, really early for me, really late, you know, we'll just kind of take turns having the time be awkward. And I think being really respectful of the fact that, you know, sharing that burden per se, I think makes it really easy, or a lot easier to work asynchronously. Also,
I think you know, when I remember years ago when I worked in the office, you worked 9 to 5, and when you left, that's it. You stopped working. There's more give and take. I think when you're working from home, you might work. I don't know if I want to use the word flex hours, but to your point, Karen, that you have a 9 o'clock meeting tonight. You may start at noon. You may start at 1, and I think companies are more open to that, especially nowadays.
Good. Roberto, can you verbalize your question on the source of truth? I think I might know what you mean, but it'd be great if you could add a little more context to it.
Well, with this all kind of situations, you have your like sometimes you can see like working from homes can be more like if you don't get something, it's because you are working from home. How do you 100% sure that you're doing the right job? People can get distracted, so it's pretty hard. So working from home, it doesn't fit for everyone. So sometimes you can get distracted at work, and then you are better working from home, and some people working the other way. Some people are more distracted at home, and so that doesn't work. So my main question is how you can handle, how do you know if the people, so because you are a huge company with a lot of people everywhere, and what is the best strategy to enforce people or to reinforce people to follow really good practice? Because this is a huge opportunity, for example, for people that were doing freelance. They were doing that practice. So people that were doing freelance were doing right things, and no one's cared about it. Most of the people say, "Oh, you are freelance, you don't know how to work in a big company." But now that kind of people, they have the right skills to work from home or to work remote. So my main concern, the questions, I just explained a little bit, but my main concern is, what is the source of truth? How do you know someone is being productive working from home? What is the timeline for if someone's to start working with GitLab? How long is gonna that person? How long GitLab give that person a chance? Like you have maybe a couple of months to get familiarization with the process, get confidence, start, do the accommodation for you and your family and your environment. Because if you came from a company that you have to go every single day and then you move to GitLab, it's going to be a whole different daily task for you.
Yeah, so I think there's two pieces here, and I'm going to try and grab the second one. The first one is we believe deeply at GitLab, one of our core values is results, and the focus is on those results. And so that puts the onus on the manager, of course, to set direction and have context on where someone's moving. The other piece that you hit on that's really important, and this is another value with us, if you look, you link on this link, you'll see iteration. This is probably the hardest value that we live to live it out. But if you combine the idea of results and iteration, what you find is this. If I set a result, and the simplest of ways this is often done is OKRs, objectives and key results, and you might roll them out. We do it every quarter. If I give you an objective that's a quarter out and I come back and talk to you in a quarter and you're like, oh, I didn't quite hit it. Like, you knew you were going to hit it a long time before you hit the quarter. So we focus that on the iterative nature of, if the goal is X, you break it in all the little pieces, and we're going to know if I'm going to say train 200 people by the end of the quarter. If that's the goal, but I don't have built, like, I should know by this end of this week, do I have a platform? Do I have resources? That's the process of iteration, is do the smallest piece possible, and B, the last one is do it with transparency. So if you go and look at our web page, our values, which I'm here, I linked here, results are intricately tied to iteration and transparency, meaning you're working on little pieces and you're constantly moving that ball forward. As long as ship it in, if you're doing code-wise, we're talking ship it in as small pieces as possible, as quickly as possible. And then the transparency is that we share it with everyone. So the biggest one here is going to be, so you got to be quick on iteration, and in some cultures, transparency is going to be hard, because inevitably, if you spent another 10 hours before you shared with everyone, it's going to look better. But if you share it quick, you're going to get a quick correction if that was wrong, right? And people are going to know you're making progress. So that transparency of sharing what work is going on at all times. For example, in GitLab, the default for every document is that it will be shared with everyone in the company. Full stop. And you have to decide, have a good reason as to, it's not audited, but then the question is, if you make it not to everyone in GitLab, the question is why? And you should have a very clear reason why. And there are good reasons why, don't get me wrong. But start with a transparency and a trust, and then move to maybe less if you don't. But mix those three together. Results mixed with iteration and transparency is extraordinarily powerful. I hope that helped a little. And I will get the link for the onboarding issue, which is fascinating. This is about 600 or 700 steps for someone that joins GitLab, and the process they go through on how they get access to everything, what training they should take, etc. I'll share it with you. You're welcome to use it for whatever you would like. But I'll get that link and add it in here. It's just going to take me a minute to find it.
Thank you.